Well, this is something, isn't it?
Hello. Great to be here.
It's really, really nice to be in Albuquerque.
Yeah, wow. And I love that music. Pretty good music. So, my first panel.
It's my first panel as well.
And my first time meeting Richard.
I know. We've never bumped into,
No.
neither of us have done loads of these conventions.
No, but I feel like we're in a X-Wing together.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know.
Does anyone have a question to kick it off, or can I ask mine? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, the gentleman.
What was it like in the first episode of Star Wars whenever they first filmed it?
Well, when I was an actor, you know, I'm still an actor, right? It never leaves you, but I auditioned for C-3PO in LA, and didn't hear anything. And then in post-production, they called me to come in and do this voice of this character that had a very thick Scottish accent. So all I saw was that sequence coming into the trench scene, and I was working with George Lucas, and then Mark Hamill came in, and he was kind of just hanging there watching because he was going to do some voice stuff later. But at the time, I didn't really know what it was going to be, you know. So I did my thing, and then when I saw the opening, the Chinese theater, I was like, wow. I mean, it was really something special. So really thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, kind of same with me. I live in England, UK, American actor living there, and at the time, a bunch of us would always get called up to, in any U.S. production, pretty much, to play parts that offset the American actors' parts for the unions. And so a bunch of us would just show up there. And at the time, we had no idea that this was going to become the epic thing that it became. But in Empire Strikes Back, I mean, it was on a pretty low budget. There were money problems, all sorts of stuff. Everybody seemed to really work together. The atmosphere on the set was so friendly. I mean, Mark Hamill and the rest of the party, we're all in the same dressing room. Nobody put on any airs about anything. We all sort of worked together really well. Carrie Fisher, rest her soul, she was the highlight of the week that I was on that film, because, I mean, she was just such a funny woman. She was just such a laugh to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, she was probably clinically insane, but she was so lovely with it. It's amazing. And in that scene I did with her, the two fighters against a Star Destroyer, which has become some sort of classic line, God knows why. We had to retake it over and over again, as the part of the engine of the Millennium Falcon in the background kept wobbling because of the wind machines. Well, because everything was, the British technicians that made bits of cardboard look so good were amazing. You know, they did such a fantastic job to get the effect that it did. But at the time, we had, any of us working on it had no idea it was going to become what it was, apart from the feeling that from the rest of the cast that it was something a little bit special.
That's true.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yep.
When the scene, whenever when you.
Yeah. I don't really remember it too well to say it was hard to stay on it. It was at the time they did a lot of different angles and filmings that, as an actor or playing that scene, because you don't know with the blue screen and the model making things what's going to happen, you kind of have no idea what you're really doing, apart from, you know, the director telling you to kind of do it one way or do it another way, and it's you don't actually know what it's going to turn out to until you see the final version. If that answers your question.
I had a question for you, specifically to David. You worked on the old and new Star Wars films. What's the main differences?
Yes. Well, so 40 years ago, I was lucky enough to do the voice of Wedge, and then in October, Lucasfilms called and wanted to know if that's available to do. You know, they want to try to, pardon the pun, but wedge the voice into Rogue One, and I said, sure, I'm available, of course. So I went down to Burbank to Disney, and was just so fortunate. It was really an amazing experience. I was a PA announcer on Yavin, announcing redirecting the rebels to Scarif for the last battle scene, and got to say "May the Force be with you," which is so cool. And it was just a thrill for me. I mean, they're 40 years apart, and to bookend it that way is so nice. And the Disney sound, the whole sound stage there is really high tech, and then we got, the big screen. We got to see sequences of the film, and I was a little in A New Hope. I was a little post-production house in Hollywood that was, wasn't really high tech back then, and I was also with a bunch of voice actors in Burbank for Rogue One, like Tom Kane and some really great voice people that I got to kind of hobnob with. It was kind of a thrill for me, to be a part of it. And they even introduced me there. It was kind of cool, because I was a part of A New Hope. So, I mean, it's just, and it's really because of the fans. I mean, we wouldn't be here without all of you. So that's what's really cool.
And to give you an idea how nice all these people are, I mean, Mark Hamill, I was a small part in this film. And he was around in the same dressing rooms and stuff, and we got, quite friendly. He's such a nice, did you meet him?
I met him in the sound booth.
He's such a nice guy. He got special tickets for my two younger kids to come to the premiere of it, and we sat in, which is above and beyond. That's something which is really, really nice, and that was sort of encapsulates how that production was at the time. Everybody was sort of working together to try to make this thing work, which had a lot of difficulties in the second film, mainly money problems and union problems. There were lots of problems to get it made, but. I should have, in hindsight, I should have grabbed loads of stuff off the set, because nothing was ever nailed down. Everything was always falling off.
That's
true. You would have taken and made a fortune on eBay. It's. I managed to find. Remarkably, I have a action figure, which is ridiculous to have an.
I have one too.
Well, I know but I've sold all mine that I had.
What's your favorite piece of Star Wars memorabilia? And did you take anything from set with you, or were there any gifts? Did something fall in your pocket? As you were
Nothing did. I would have grabbed one. There were loads of disused lifesaver handles around, because they put all the rest of it in special effects. There were loads of stuff you could take, but it wasn't a sealed high security set as you have these days. I've just come back from doing a very small thing in Game of Thrones. And the security on Game of Thrones, I don't even know who I was talking to and you're almost searched. It's so high security that it's unbelievable. But back then in Elstree Studio, you could have walked off with loads of stuff. It would have been great too, but we didn't know. Nobody knew. It was this quirky science fiction thing that had one thing. Nobody even knew it would get finished when we were on it.
They gave me a little poster, a small poster at Disney when I did the voice down there.
Well, I'm still waiting for Disney to call, but
they're going to. No, they'll call. Great.
The technology obviously has changed quite immensely from the beginning to now.
Yeah.
Do you think that's helped or hindered creativity when we rely so much on CGI and digital digitization. What are your thoughts on that?
I had, it's fun. This is like a personal story, but when I was 13, I was neighbors with Dennis Murin when we grew up, and he used to make little special effects experiments in his garage and backyard, and I was an actor in them. So we were friends then, and I have some of it somewhere, and I'll, maybe someday it'll be out there, but some really cool, special effects that he was making back then. And then we lost touch, but years later we both became involved in his amazing special effects. Without CGI, but just building the miniatures, and he was always into that. And I think I have a picture actually that I might have brought of our little monster museum that we put together because we used to collect photos and posters and lobby cards, and they took a picture of us. So I think I don't think I have too many to sign, but I should put one on my table so you can see Dennis, myself, my little brother in our little monster museum that we put up. So it's another kind of a fun little story because it's kind of the history of my little road to Star Wars. That's
Yeah, I
touches.
think the original and part of what brought the film production to the UK anyway was the incredibly innovative model making and computer filming technology that was pioneered in the UK. And I don't know if you've seen any of these little miniatures of the Millennium Falcon, and so that those guys,
I didn't see
unbelievably
no, I haven't seen it in person,
detailed, tiny replicas that in the early Star Wars films, before there wasn't CGI then as such. There was blue screen, but there was not CGI, and so they used computer-linked cameras to these little miniatures, and the technology made made the look of the films, the early films, so incredible. Also, part of what I understand is what Hollywood didn't like about it, because the set builders unions didn't like the miniatures, did they? They wanted to build full-scale replicas of all this stuff. Yeah, I think CGI has gotten better. I can still spot it. I think they're getting better to humanize CGI. But some of the original model making and way they worked it in the early days was almost unbeatable.
Well, us being geeks really love details, especially things that don't make it into final cuts. Are there any stories of scenes or parts of the film that you've worked in that didn't make it into the final movie that we've seen?
In the Star Wars, loads of things I've done that's not made it into the final cut. As an actor, you get used to that. No, nothing that I unfortunately worked on that in that didn't. I don't know if you.
Yeah, well, in A New Hope, it's not like it didn't make it, and it's kind of a reverse that there was one scene in the briefing room scene. I don't know if people know it. Some people know it or not. There was another Wedge, Colin Higgins, who played Wedge in the one scene. That's impossible even for a computer. I did his voice, and then Dennis Lawson's voice, but. I don't know the actual detail why Dennis wasn't in that scene or not, but there was kind of two Wedges and then a voice of Wedge. So in A New Hope, they were collaging it together, that one character, but it was interesting. Very exciting to be a part of, for sure.
Are you saying you voiced 3 people and you were talking to yourself?
I voiced 2 people. Yeah, I know. Well, along with my voice, I guess 3. No, I didn't voice myself, but I voiced Colin Higgins in this briefing room scene in A New Hope, and Dennis Lawson. They were both Wedge, the same Wedge. But I think it was. I don't know if people really noticed that or not. Some of the fans probably do, but I'm not sure why that happened, but I just know when I was called in to do the voice, he said, I want you to voice this character in this scene, but it's also the same character as the trench
It's really weird,
scene.
isn't it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. But I guess I was kind of like glue, is what I was. I was like cosmic glue to hold it together. Question.
Gentlemen, you're both part of this larger X-Wing fighter pilot lore. It's kind of taken on life of its own in the larger Star Wars mythology. And so what would you have liked to see happen next with that kind of plot line, that kind of piece of the Star Wars mythology, now that Star Wars is continuing to be expanded and films are being made, and maybe something new will happen with that kind of X-Wing fighter pilot story?
Wow. That's a question for George. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, the fans probably have thoughts on that for sure. You know, personally, I'd just like to be a part of it. To tell you the truth, I like to just come in and whoever writes this, because I love being surprised when they. I think when Rogue came out and finally saw the final cut, it was. I really loved it. I mean, I was, you know, just aside from being a small part of it, I thought it was really terrific.
Yeah, they should really bring the old pilots back.
But, you know, I guess they could superimpose a couple of... Yeah, the old pilots. Oh, you're not an old pilot.
Well, no, I can see a scenario where a bunch, because there's
the
actually
old-
a
the
few of
rebel
us that
old
are
age
still
home.
alive and still working. But it'd be great to do that again. We can be sort of
That would be kind of cool, on a mission.
yeah, on a mission.
I know they'll come up with something. They'll come up with something terrific. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sure they will. I like being surprised myself. So,
I think it's going in the right direction. They seem to. I know a lot of people were not disappointed, but were wondering about the first new film. But I think in context, when the next one comes out, it'll make more sense in context. Having the whole backstory happening, and I think Disney actually, there's someone there that's not messing it up too much. I think they realize that it's quite a fragile thing, this type of franchise, and if they don't look after it carefully, they can lose it. People identify with it's all the good versus evil scenario thing, and the rogue pilots they sort of symbolize something that people can identify with. So hopefully they'll carry on in similar vein to that.
That's awesome. We have a question back over here on mic.
Everyone always talks about the people on set that they loved and that everybody liked. I was just wondering if there was anyone on set that no one could stand.
You can't. The problem with that there was one individual, but you can't do it because you might never work again. Because you never know when they. There's always one.
so there's just that one. So that's it. There's one.
There's well, don't you find there's usually one?
There's usually, yeah.
There's usually one.
Of course.
There's usually one that you're instructed not to look at or speak to, or. But you can't name names now.
My question was, how do you feel about Disney owning Star Wars? Think it's better in their hands, or was it better with George?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, I think I'm a fan of George, you know, and the early films, but I really liked Rogue, you know, so I thought they did a really great job in, you know, getting to the heart of the rebels, you know, and what they're about. So
I think he had to let it go to some extent. I mean, he's got some finger in it, though, doesn't he? Has he got some?
Lucasfilms.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure in the back scenes he's got more to do. I think when I first heard that Disney was going to take it, I thought, oh God, here we go. You know, it's going to be, they'll milk it and become horrible. But I think they've done a much better job with it than I expected. I think they've got clever people in their team who recognize what George Lucas had with it and are trying to emulate it to some extent. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has more feedback with them than we know. I don't know for sure, but
That's probably true.
you know, I would think so. Since it's Baby originally.
With Rogue One coming out, with the controversy being up there now about, you know, bringing actors back to life digitally, I was just curious what your guys' opinion was being in Star Wars and what you guys thought of that, you know, bringing digitally something back to life.
If they pay me, they can bring me back digitally. I don't mind. I don't care.
I didn't know. I mean, I had to go see the movie to see it, which was really, it was interesting. I kind of liked what they did with it. Just kind of kept. They wanted to bring that, you know, that early history, keep it alive, you know, going into A New Hope. But I'm sure everyone has different opinions. I liked it.
I think it's good.
I really did tie it in. I can't believe this question hasn't been asked, but what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Favorite Star Wars movie?
Yes.
I
If you
actually,
wanted to do episodes, you
I
could.
mean, my favorite is still the first Star Wars film. Maybe because of the impact it made on me when I saw it originally. It sort of blew me away watching it. And it may not be technically the most advanced of any of them, but that's my favorite, is actually the first Star Wars.
I think A New Hope, but it's pretty close. The Empire Strikes Back, and I really like Rogue. I don't know. I'm kind of a fan of all of those.
I liked Rogue. I thought it was good.
So the oldest and the newest?
For me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to. I'm glad they're introducing characters who would have been around the whole events of the basis of the film, as there would be. You know, there's all these other scenarios going on at the same time as Luke Skywalker. You know, it doesn't. You know, and it's perfectly valid to have their story be told or made up or whatever. And I think that's. I think it's good sometimes to have the same scenario, but not linked directly with having to have the same iconic characters in it. So, I mean, I like that.
And talking about old and new, I mean, we're older, but I feel like new again. You know, with this new, with a whole new.
Yeah, no, we've been.
Look, I mean, there's a whole new energy in the Force. I feel like.
Yes.
So it's really. Really
Helped
kinda
my
cool.
arthritis.
It might be. It might be. We can fix that.
You have a new hope in the new movies.
We have hope. Yes.
We have hope, yes.
Yes, we have hope.
We have a question over to the side again.
Hi. Okay. Did either one of you ever work directly with George Lucas, and what's he like as a director?
I worked with him at just doing the voice work, and he was terrific. You know, just kind of directing me to kind of getting the right emotion and feel to match Dennis's, you know, voice. I only worked on it probably just a few hours, you know, doing the voice work. So I haven't really seen him since, but I'll have to give him a call.
Yeah, no, I only had him. I only was directed by him in that scene that you all know with Carrie Fisher, and he was remarkably relaxed, and I know he wasn't such a big director back then. I mean,
No, he hadn't.
he hadn't done that much, but no, he was very good. I think he knew exactly the feeling, what he wanted out of the scene, and he didn't make you feel stupid if things went wrong.
Right.
That scene with Carrie Fisher had to be retaken several times because of technical problems and bits falling off, the stuff in the background because they put wind machines on and things like that, and time was very tight and money was a big issue at the time on the production, and but in all of that he made us all feel, you know, feel really
It's just
good.
kind of part of the,
Part of the
team,
part
really.
of the team, part of the production. We weren't didn't feel like small bits in it because it felt like, quite a family production in a way.
Yeah.
Did you hang out with any of your family of the production after scenes? Or outside of movie filming?
But hang out with
Any of your co-workers, actors?
well,
co-stars?
yeah. I mean, most of the rogue pilots from the early films were all, if friends or acquaintances, right? Because we were all a group of American actors who lived and worked in the UK at the time, and would always show up on American productions. So a lot of us, like I knew Dennis.
Oh, you knew Dennis?
Yeah,
Oh, cool,
it's
cool.
he does have a very thick Scottish accent.
I've never met him.
Yeah,
I've never
he's
met
really,
Dennis.
really,
but,
really nice guy. But
yeah.
he's done loads of work in. I was in a play with him in Edinburgh. But no, I'm not going to go. Yeah, most of the American actors who live in the UK, there weren't that many of us who worked continuously, and so we would all bump into each other at auditions or things like that. Mark Hamill was a really sweet guy, as I already said. We kept in contact a little bit afterwards, but not really. He hung out with all of us in between takes and in the dressing room and stuff. He was, but he wasn't a big star at that point. He had not done very much before that, but he was a really cool guy.
The only one I kind of hung out with, I didn't really hang out, was Fred Roos, because I became a writer. I had written a little horror vampire movie that he was kind of interested in, so he optioned it and paid for a rewrite, and we kind of got involved for a while on that. Never got made, but he's kind of been an ongoing kind of connection for me. But none of the actors, no, haven't, except for Richard here.
Yeah.
We're hanging out now.
We're hanging out now.
You make new friends all the time. Just talk to Comic Con, meet new people.
Good afternoon. In relation to how Star Wars and the EU has changed in the backstories of many of the characters, and how we know that the crest of the rebellion is the family crest of Star Killer. And we've already seen Star Killer Base. We're going to be having a Han Solo spin-off movie here soon. Do you know if they're going to do like a Wraith? Because the X-Wing fighters end up having the Wraith squad and doing anything like that, where you might be involved in voiceover for that too?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, one can hope.
There's always a possibility. So, Red 2 standing by. If the force is out there somewhere listening. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm always as surprised as anybody, so we'll see what happens. I was surprised with Rogue One, so.
You mentioned earlier hanging out with Mark Hamill in between takes. I hear Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, the whole original cast were quite the pranksters and jokesters on set. Do you have any behind-the-scenes gaps that you'd like to share?
No, I don't remember anything particular apart from the practical parts falling off things that had to stop the take. But that's probably about it. But it would, every time it happened, because it happened a couple of times, several times in a row, it became funny, and it became harder and harder not to. You kept expecting something to happen,
You're waiting for it.
And so poor Carrie Fisher would get the giggles before, because do you know what I mean? You're expecting, you don't know it's gonna happen. And sometimes when in acting in films, when you have to do a take several times, it becomes harder and harder sometimes to do it without laughing or getting the giggles from it, because it's it's playing on the back of your mind that it's going to happen again. But apart from that, nothing springs to mind. Apart from all the fun we had during sort of just as a group offset in Elstree Studios, watching these insane people on these long. Did anyone remember this film of The Wizard of Oz with these weird guys on long roller skates with their hands? That was being filmed at the same time as we were doing Empire Strikes Back, and they were out in the lot practicing on. If you remember, these guys speed around on these things, and they were practicing this and having the most horrendous crashes and stuff. And that was good fun. I know we enjoyed watching that. But
what's it feel like to see another actor take over the voice that you originally gave life to? What is that like?
Well, a little probably like Dennis Lawson realizing that his voice wasn't in A New Hope. You know,
he thought his accent was great.
Yeah. So, I probably if it was reversed and I was in Dennis's shoes and then I went to see the premiere and my voice wasn't there, I would, it'd be kind of disconcerting. But for me, I'm just happy to be able to work when I can, and if I can continue it, it'd be fantastic. I'm just feel blessed, really. So I'm not going to give anybody any direction on it or anything. No, if they throw something my way, I'll just show up and do it.
Were there any scenes or lines that were particularly hard to say or take that required a lot of takes on yours or any of your other stars' behalves? Like take 32, take 45.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I don't know. We did a lot of takes, kind of different takes. What about that tower? That was. I did that quite a few times. I don't know. I'm not quite sure why, but and then can't stay with you. Sorry. Just different inflections. It was just kind of fun to work with him and I didn't. All I saw was this little tiny screen and just that sequence. So I didn't know what it was until I saw the movie and how it was incorporated. So that was quite a mind-blowing experience.
I said two fighters against a Star Destroyer probably about 20 different ways, and they choose whichever one they wanted, which ended up in because that was they on the large set, it's difficult to get the actors' voices accurately, particularly in a big sound stage like that with the wind machines and stuff. So after you do the take, you come back, they put it on a little screen, and you dub the line. And just to be on the safe side, you do it like loads of different ways, and then it goes off and they choose whatever one they want to choose. But I don't know how it ended up so memorable in my case, but it somehow did. It's one of the few things I noticed that you can Google the line and it comes up.
Yeah, it's true.
I know, it's really weird. It's also been, I think, voted both one of the best and worst lines in the entire bunch of films. So it's, any publicity is good publicity.
There you go.
Beyond Star Wars, is there something you'd like to share with us that you're particularly proud of, and maybe recommend that we seek out of your material that you're particularly proud of in your careers?
Oh, interesting. I did a series of spin-off of Bewitched called Tabitha, and it's a different genre. A long time ago, I played Adam Stevens grown up opposite Lisa Hartman just for one season, so that's out there. Same year as I did the voice of Wedge, so that's an interesting time. It was a good time for me. 1977 was a good year. So, but that, did a lot of TV films. Those TV like Murder, She Wrote, little guest star spots, Simon and Simon, and throwing John Boy off a bridge on his first day of college, and the Waltons, things, weird little things like that. But I don't think you can seek that. You don't need to seek that out.
No, I mean, the only thing, I don't know if you can seek anything. All my work in the UK was involved in bits in American productions in films, and then a lot of UK either small television plays, or did a couple of TV series which you wouldn't want to seek out. The only one that's sort of weird was that I get sometimes recognized for is Captain York in The Martian Chronicles with Rock Hudson. Yeah, that was a weird, and that was filmed in Malta, anything that I did that was any recognition was in the UK was pretty much always theater. So it's I did a lot of very dubious television plays, but.
We have time for one last story from each of you, and I'd like to end it on a positive note.
Oh,
What was your favorite moment as an actor in your entire career?
Oh, wow. I was kind of thrilled. I was cast by Jerry Lewis in a film called Cracking Up. It was also called Smorgasbord. And it was just a bit where he was going to commit suicide. So he had a TV screen, he had a rifle pointing at the chair, it was hooked to the doorknob, and I was a bellboy delivering ice, because he had it all timed that when the door opened, the gun would go off and he'd be, it would shoot him. Well, it got kind of, he opened the door and the gun went off and shot the TV, which was a Western, and the cowboy in the screen shot back and killed me. Kind of a crazy scene, but it was really kind of a really cool little bit to work with Jerry Lewis as a director and in the scene. So I'd say that. Let's say A New Hope, but Jerry Lewis too.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's one of the smallest things I did was Empire Strikes Back, but it always it's sort of always stayed with me because of the atmosphere on that film set was something that I hadn't actually ever encountered really since. And God rest her soul, Carrie Fisher was just so nice, so funny and nice to me at the time. I always remembered that. And to me that was, even though it was a very small one-line thing in it, it was one of the things I remember so fondly in my career. Other than that, just getting paid to do any acting thing at all is an amazing. It's amazing to do something that you like it, or and get actually paid for it. And now coming around and doing this this is
fantastic.
Really good to. It's I don't know if you found the amount of youngsters who come up and know you. Your character from the film. We don't quite get that quite the same in Europe, but had no idea that it was so strong I'm talking the 10-year-olds and things. So it's great.
The new generations. It's really great to be in Albuquerque too. It's first time here, and really the fans are terrific. So that's really what makes it all possible. So.
Welcome
Thank
to our
you.
state, and thank you very much.
Thank you.